Awesome. Guys, well, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Forecast. Michael Clark here, and I have a very special guest today, Ralph Reiff, and we're going to talk to Ralph today about um, his 46 years of experience in his field and how weather has played significant roles in his job and what he's done over the years. He's just recently retired, but 46 years. So there's a plethora of wealth and knowledge here that Ralph has that he can we can kind of share and get into. And before we started the podcast, Ralph and I were kind of talking about how long we've kind of known each other a little bit, how we were introduced. Um, and so today's going to be a great quick interview on, how weather impacts the sporting event world and athletes and how we're keeping people safe and healthy from weather. But real quick, guys, if today's episode was of any interest to you, if it brings you any value, makes you curious, makes you laugh, make sure you share it with a friend. Um, Post it, tag us, give us a review. We'd appreciate that for sure. So enough about me. Ralph, tell us a little bit, man. Welcome to the show. Welcome in here to the office. Tell us a little bit, Ralph, about over the last 46 years, what have you done? What do you do? What did you do for 46 years?
Well, yeah, it's great to be here
Yeah.
and actually very exciting to be in the headquarters of,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
your organization.
Yeah.
Um, so I was trained as an athletic trainer.
Okay.
So I'm a licensed athletic trainer in Indiana and nationally certified. And so an athletic trainer wears a lot of hats, has a lot of accountabilities within the organization they work for. My work has was split evenly. 26 years I spent at Butler University, so I was in collegiate athletics, and 20 years I started St. Vincent Sports Performance for Ascension St. Vincent here in Indianapolis. Started that in 1999 and built that organization and worked there for 20 years and had a lot of impact on local high schools, running events, all the way up to Olympic and international events and so forth. And so a lot of our work is done outdoors. A lot of the athletes are out of doors, and it's that exposure to the elements makes as part of our job as athletic trainers and our emergency action plans and just our accountability of taking care of the athletes, getting them in a safe environment is you got to pay attention to the elements and you've got to be aware of the environment and boy, over 46 years since 1980 to now. And that range, a lot has changed, and the information that's available to us
Yeah.
and the knowledge that we have as athletic trainers. And so to see your organization come into that window as a resource has been very exciting.
I love it, man. So when we were talking a little bit ago, we started this back in 2013. And when I started doing this, I never in a million years would have thought some of the stuff that we do now is what we would be doing. For example, wet bulb temperature, real fuel, heat index,
Right.
those things impact events immensely. And the whole wet bulb thing has really caught in a lot of fire in the last few years.
Hmm.
And I think it's because now we understand what that's doing to the human body as
Yeah.
you're perspirating and
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you're sweating?
Hmm.
Well, I don't know that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we really understood that as much, or we were able at least to predict it as well as we are now.
Well, there's been a lot of research done. A lot of that in our world there were some key components along the way. The Ohio State University Dr. Cooper was very instrumental in the 80s of really bringing it to a chapter in the textbook about managing the athlete's core temperature, how to cool them down, how to manage them once cramps occurred, all of those things. And then along came Gatorade and the science of Gatorade. The Gatorade Sports Science Institute is a great organization. There are other products as well, but Gatorade was really at the forefront of making a specific product that would help the athlete out of doors not fatigue as quickly and not lose electrolytes at such a level that their muscles started to fail and would cramp.
Yep.
And so with that advancement, we've just kept advancing as we go along. And so we in the athletic training field, when you talk about just the athlete and preparing for um, their practices, their games, different times of day, different locations geographically, because sometimes we have to also figure in altitude. If we're someplace, don't have to worry about that too much in Indiana at 800 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
But
Denver.
in Denver, we worry about that a lot.
Yeah.
New Mexico, various places that we might go. But getting back to the role of the athletic trainer and the healthcare team, the team physicians, and the operations team that manages if it's a game day, if it's an event day, if it's a road race. I worked with Ken Long, who's a Southside Indianapolis legend with running events way back, and we didn't have red flags, black flags, yellow flags, green flags as far as managing the heat.
Yeah.
It was just you dealt with what happened, and we've come a long ways since then. And your organization, the intel that comes out of what you provide, has just added another layer to the resource that we as athletic trainers can utilize to make right decisions.
I love it. And again, it's funny because, you know, that is something 10 years ago, had you told me that, I would have been like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how I could help.
Hmm.
And now with what we've learned and what we do, there's a whole space there for to provide that type of information, that type of intel. So
Yeah,
I have a couple things, Ralph, that I kind of want to, you know, trigger some thoughts from you
sure.
on. Um, and I think the first thing I'm really curious about is in terms of the decision making process for athletic events as it pertains to the weather. Um, what is it that people may not truly understand about that process? Because I feel like as you alluded to before this, there's 15 different opinions,
Hmm.
but someone, probably you, has to go, okay, this is what we have to do because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And I think some people really question it, like, well, why are we doing this? Or where's that coming from? I don't see it on my app, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So give us a little bit of insight. What is it that people may not really realize about decision making process with weather and in athletics?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because at the very core of um, why we do what we do is because very quickly a an athlete, any range of age, but I'm just going to sort of put the parentheses around the high school and collegiate student athlete, sort of a 10-year range there, 2014 to 24. But um, in a very short period of time, in very stressful, environmentally stressful conditions, an athlete can deteriorate quickly and can become unrecoverable and becomes a fatality. It can happen um, without notice. It can happen to highly tuned, well conditioned athletes because maybe they didn't hydrate their normal way. Maybe they've had a fever or a cough. Maybe they were sidelined for 3 days and became a little bit de-acclimatized. And so there's multiple factors, so we're always on alert, when temperatures start to rise, we're talking a lot about heat, but I don't wanna leave out during COVID, we became very familiar with cold weather standards because the season sort of shifted
Yeah,
because we were able to get back into practices in the late November, December of 2020
yeah.
and into early 21. We were practicing outdoors with a lot of sports who were trying to catch up. So,
Winter started very cold.
yes, it did.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so, the body is an amazing machine, particularly when you put athletes into the mix, and, they can adapt, to a lot of things, but, the heat in particular can, really be a stressor. They can lose potassium and sodium very quickly if they're not, um, well conditioned from a fluid standpoint, but so what do we do in prep for that. We take care of the individual athlete. We counsel with the coaches. We counsel with our operations staff of who's managing the fields, the operations of things, and trying to communicate that all across a campus. Conditions change across the campus. And so that again is another reason that we rely upon data and information. And so a lot of times decisions about practice will be made a day before, a half day before, an hour before. And so real time decision making is critical to us because when you're trying to move a football team and change their schedule for the day when you got classes going on campus as well, or if you've got a cross country meet where you've got 15 schools coming to your campus and you're going to black flag it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Boy, if you knew that at noon, then you could prevent those teams from traveling
Yep.
and offset it to another time frame, move it to later in the day,
Yep.
whatever it might be.
And I love what you just said there. If you could know at noon instead of 4, we're talking 4 hours.
Yep.
And it's as easy as for what we do, and I know you know, text it. Text us. Say,
Yeah.
"Hey, we've got 15 schools coming. It's 102 out here.
Hmm.
The wet bulb's 95. This is scorching hot.
Yep.
Do you foresee thresholds to peak and worsen, or is
Right.
it gonna subside?"
Right.
And then now all of a sudden we're helping not only you make that decision, but hundreds of people
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah, Michael, let me expand upon on the chat feature because I think that's the secret sauce
Okay.
for your product. You know, going back historically for me, I would call the National Weather Service at the airport.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
back in the '80s,
Uh-huh.
and I'd try
Yep.
and I'd say, "What's happening?"
Yep.
And they'd give me this general report,
Yep.
and Butler's 15 miles away
Yeah.
from the airport, and it's northwest of or northeast of the airport, and so you have to figure all those things in.
Yep.
And now today we can take a look at your product on the app. If we've got a question, if we're sitting around, this is real stuff. If I'm sitting with our softball coach at Butler, and they're trying to decide if Villanova ought to get on their airplane and fly here for a weekend series, and we know we're going to have no chance on Friday to play or on Saturday to play, they can make smart financial
Yep.
decisions, safety decisions based on, well, hey, maybe Butler goes to Villanova, and we reverse it because they've got blue skies. Or it's the type of thing of, hey, let's not plan on playing on Friday. So we call all the parents, the umpires, everybody. We move it to Saturday, Sunday. We play one game on Saturday. We play two games on Sunday, and you make those things happen sitting there on a Thursday
Yep.
because we've got information and we can chat with your meteorologist and I'll just use a personal story.
Yeah.
So our youngest son, got married, the 1st of June in
Okay.
St. Louis, all right? Right in the path of where the
I know where
tornado
this is
went
going.
through,
Yeah.
right?
I know where this is going.
And so, I had, clarity, on my phone,
Yeah.
and I was marking, where their wedding was taking place, and I kept watching it, and we stayed dry, it was an outdoor service, and I text and I said, "Hey, how long are we gonna be in this dry window?" And I'll tell you what, to 15 minutes, the meteorologist gave us information. We were inside for the reception during the whole rainstorm,
Uh-huh.
and it worked out perfectly. We didn't have to make any changes because I had confidence in what the meteorologist was
Yep.
telling me. And
Do you remember who you were talking to?
I don't
Okay.
exactly, but it was personal.
Yep.
"Hey, Ralph, I'll look right into that, and I'll give you an answer
Yep.
shortly."
Yep.
And sure enough, the text came back, and you know, that's not sports, but that's a really important life event. What if that's a high school graduation?
100%. Yeah.
Right? And
100%.
you've got to get grandma and grandpa and everybody else who can't run in the rain
Yeah.
out to their cars.
Yeah.
So there's so much value in that
Mhm.
that I believe that, like a lot of technology, Ralph's guilty of this as well. We don't use the whole bandwidth of what's available to us. And I've had to remind people in my world, hey, you can chat,
Yep.
don't just look at the individual data.
Yep.
You know, if and I'm passionate about farming. If you're gonna you want to get your spray on your beans,
Yep.
but it says you're going to have wind gust and you might not want to spray. Talk to the meteorologist and see
Yep.
if your acreage truly is
Yep.
in the red zone, or if you can go ahead and spray between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Yep.
and be okay with wind speeds.
Yep.
It's an amazing tool.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think that what I love most about all of this is our desire, and I can tell yours as well, is to help people.
Yes.
And that's what's really that's where our service or our company has started to kind of take off because our meteorologists, our staff, everybody wants to help.
Hmm.
And so that's a to me, that's a separating factor. We're not just another company or another place that wants people's money. Yeah, money makes the world go round, but what we really want to do is help people. And if we know that we can take an event where you've got a bunch of schools coming or there's people, their lives are at risk because a tornado is coming,
Hmm.
these guys, the Mets here, they take passion in going, I had a hand in that.
Yeah.
I was able to help
Yeah.
them not
Yeah.
have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, probably the coolest part
Well,
of the business.
yeah, and there's a risk management side to this also, that um, if we know that there are tools available in our business, and we don't utilize those tools, and something unfortunate occurs, um, th- there's some liability there of, hey, I had the knowledge, I didn't use the what was available to me, and therefore we didn't make the best decisions possible.
How
Yeah.
do we so on that, you bring up a great point. I wanna ask you, in your opinion, because you've worked in this industry now for longer than I've been alive, by the way, which is crazy. Uh, how do we gently get people to realize to do that? Like, so if you say it's there, but if you don't use it, okay, so how do we get people more aware of, guys, this you can have real-time information and talk to someone and help
Yeah,
you with decisions.
yeah.
How do we get what do you think we should
Well, it's
like being advocates or
yeah, advocates keep telling the story, and it's there's different things that move the needle for people in decision making. I've dealt with this my whole life. I'm a significant advocate for the health and well-being of the athlete. No question. And every administrator, coach, team owner, um, youth league director will say the highest priority is the health and well-being of our participants.
Mhm.
Until now I'm being Ralph now,
Sure.
until such time that we've got to get these games in. We need to meet this demand. We need to play this game at a certain time because of a television contract. We need to do these things. And so now you start to compromise, but we've got to understand what the non-negotiables are. And the non-negotiables are using all the tools that we can um, get our hands on, that we can validate and trust, that give us the best opportunity to make the right decisions. And that's a continuation of telling the story and telling the story about things that are available. So, healthcare, well, we need to do it for the health and well-being of the participants. Yes, that's said with sincerity, but we get more people leaning forward if we say this can help performance.
100%. Yeah. And I get it.
What do you mean, Ralph? It helps performance. So if we could postpone that cross country event by 4 hours and run it at 7 p.m. instead of 3 o'clock in the afternoon after school's out, and the temperature drops, humidity changes,
Mhm.
you can increase the performance of the student
Yeah.
athletes, increase then their well-being because they've achieved something better. Because if that kid falls down somewhere in the woods because of the heat and humidity and just coming out of classes, that's not a good feeling for anybody.
No.
That's not a good
Especially a
place to
good
be,
preventer.
it, especially. And so, I think I know there are barriers. I've sat at the table. There are barriers of, well, we have a certain bucket of money. Where do we spend our money? One of the nice things that we did at Butler University is we shared costs across the campus.
Yep.
And so student affairs, who's going to have intramurals, they're going to have student affair activities outdoors.
Yep.
The BU police department
Yep.
is going to make decisions about we're going to delay school because of fog, or we're going to let's put salt down because we know there's going to be ice coming,
Yep.
all those things. And then athletics has a piece of that. So now you break your cost. You have users, you have your number of users, but you break your cost across three cost centers. Same thing applies to a youth sports organization or to a high school district. You can spread that cost because the users might have different motivations
Yeah.
for what they want. They want to make an announcement that school's going to be delayed for 2 hours because of fog.
Yep.
Well, the athletic department doesn't. They
Don't
don't.
really care.
They don't care,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
about that.
Yeah.
And so, but the athletic department does care about evacuating a stadium with lightning in the area,
Yep.
right? And so it's the same app,
Yep.
it's the same chat feature,
100%.
and so you can share that cost.
Yes. And I love that. And I think we've seen that. We've done that. We've done that with Butler. We've done that with other organizations as long as they can understand that's one way to do it. It
Yeah,
all doesn't have to come
yeah.
from one bucket or one and make it more affordable so that
Mhm,
you can utilize it. And I would say this, I would say one thing I'm curious about, one last thing here as we kind of approach the end is you're an expert in your field. Okay. So I couldn't come into an event with athletes and start doing things that you do. I wouldn't know what to do because I wouldn't have the education on it. Um, Same thing with me. I could come in and I could tell you guys all about the weather and what you need to know, when it's going to happen, when it's going to leave. And one thing we're big on for folks listening is let the experts do what they're experts at.
mhm,
Let guys like you focus on the health of the athlete and the because if you take focus off of that to go and play meteorologist for 10 minutes, it's risky
mhm.
because now you're wearing multiple hats. To whereas if we can come in as a subsidiary uh, assistance,
Yep.
say hey, from 4 to 7 p.m. XYZ, well then you take that information with your knowledge and make the decision.
Mhm.
You're not having to guess that so you can make that decision.
Right.
And so that's what I really want folks to think about is think about how easy it would be if the experts could be the experts in their fields
Exactly.
instead of having to wear multiple hats.
Yeah, no question. I've seen that expand over time, and within sports organizations, data became is still becoming a big thing in sports. How do we what data do we need, and then how do we analyze the data? Well, now I'll just use a Butler example again. We would go across campus to our mathematics science department, get students who are interested in sports analytics as a
Mhm.
profession.
Yep.
They would come to the athletic department and they became a part of the football staff and the baseball staff and the basketball staff because they were analyzing data because they were experts at it.
Mhm.
All right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so if you can add a meteorologist to your bench
Yep.
strength, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're adding value to the end result that you want to win,
Yep.
but you want to have a great student athlete experience.
100%. Recently, because of Brett, he's sitting behind the scenes, but I've taken up golf. I've been wanting to golf. Hope's actually a good golfer too. I'm not very good, but I am paying someone to help me become good
Hmm.
because I thought that I could teach myself to be good.
Ah,
And I'm telling you, you can't. I can't. I've tried it. So now I've got someone that's like,
yeah,
wrist,
yeah,
hip,
yeah,
and all,
yeah.
and I'm like, okay. But my point to that is, once you realize that, utilizing the expertise of someone else for what you're wanting to accomplish, that's kind of like a cheat code.
Yeah.
So what I like to tell folks, it's like, hey, we're just the cheat code for you.
Mhm.
We're gonna put you where you need to be without having to do anything. All you gotta do
Yeah,
is ask us.
yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of been the motivation behind, our service, our business for the last several years is how do we help people?
Yep,
Because I feel like if we help them, then they'll be happy and
yep,
everybody's happy. So,
yeah.
um, one last question for you. You said you had been doing this for 46 years
Mhm,
and you've recently retired.
mhm.
What are you looking forward to most? Because I'm going to be here one day
Yeah,
as a retired guy, accomplished. What are you going to do?
yeah.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I think I just went over your question was the 1 millionth time that's been asked of me
Okay.
since I retired
Okay.
in first May 1st.
Okay.
But, I tell you what, I'll put it this way. I retired from someone else's schedule for me.
Okay.
That's what I retired from. So I worked for great organizations, primarily 2 great organizations for 46 years, Ascension Health and Butler University.
Hmm.
But I worked on their schedule
Yep.
to that accountability, right? And I retired, and now I'm on my schedule, my wife's schedule. She's a retired school teacher, and, she's onboarding me into retirement because she retired first.
She knows how to do it.
I'm still in the learning phase, but, retirement for me is, taking what I've learned in 46 years plus 21 other years
Yeah.
of before that. So in my 67 years of life, I'm just taking what I've learned and I want to provide that to organizations and people at an elite level, and whether that's making decisions about how to manage their weather intel needs,
Yep.
or if it's some other project. And I'm still helping some athletes on an individual basis as a consultant and things of that nature. And it fills my cup to help people,
Yep.
and that's why I jump out of bed every morning.
Are you available for hire? Like, are you looking for work or are you filled up?
Well, I've only just begun.
Okay. Well,
I
if
think it's a song. I've
yeah,
only
it
just
is. Yeah.
begun, but, yeah.
If anyone listening, we'll put some contact info in the
Okay,
podcast. If anyone's
it's very
listening,
generous.
yeah, they can reach out to Ralph on your knowledge and expertise. And yeah, so
Well, thank you.
man, thank you for coming on and talking. I could talk about this for hours, but we don't have hours today. But we should continue the conversation down the road, and
Mhm.
maybe even open. I think what would be really cool. We have a lot of schools that are clients,
Okay.
and I think we could host a seminar or a
Mhm,
symposium where you and I stood up on a stage and
mhm.
helped athletic professionals.
Yeah, I agree with you because one of the things in just talking to some of the motorsports teams locally is, okay, we see the value in this, we're using this, but The the
Yeah,
learning curve,
yeah,
right? It's like any new widget,
yep,
right?
yep,
And, my wife purchased me an Apple Watch for retirement, and so I'm still learning all the buttons,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And,
yeah,
so if we can do that for
yeah,
people, to help them just become very efficient
yeah.
with the product that you provide, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I think we got some wheels are turning. So awesome. Well, Ralph,
Great.
thank you so much
My
for coming
pleasure.
on. Yep. Thank you guys again. This is another episode of Beyond the Forecast. Make sure you again share it with a friend, leave us a review on the show, and we'll see you next time.